Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way, and I came across this article in the New Zealand Herald about vaccine passports and how they're coming, and the whole article seemed completely off to me. And the kicker is right at the end, so you're going to have to bear with me a little bit until we get to the end of the article, and then you'll see why it all kind of makes sense as to the tone of the article and what the contents of the article are. So if you're not in New Zealand, currently the government has mandated that to live normally you need to have a vaccination and be double vaccinated. And then the way to prove you're double vaccinated is you need to have what's called a vaccine passport, which is either going to be a smartphone app or there'll be printouts for people that aren't. So this article is supposed to explain how vaccine passports are actually going to work. There's been absolutely no discussion by the government on the pros and cons of vaccine passports or anything like that. It's just, it's coming, you are going to have to use it if you want to live normally, which means they're trying to force everyone to be vaccinated even if you don't want to. Now personally, I am for vaccination, so I encourage everyone to get vaccinated. I am double vaxxed myself, but I believe the choice is yours to be vaccinated or not, because if I'm vaccinated, I really don't have anything too much to worry about from the unvaccinated people because I've already vaccinated, right? Which will mitigate all the worst effects of the COVID virus. So let's have a look at this, and you'll see it just seems off. So late last week, the government provided more details about its vaccine certificate system. For IRL, so in real life, Dylan Reeve explains how my vaccine pass and my COVID record will work and why there's no need to panic about privacy or security. Of course, we can just take the word of a journalist that we don't need to panic about privacy or security. It's all going to be fine, everyone. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's start with my COVID record. What is it? It's a website, soon to be a smartphone app, which you can use to access your COVID vaccination history. It's like the little card you got with your jab, but you can't accidentally put this one through the wash. Ha 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 ha. You'd be so stupid to put it through the wash, right? That just seemed off straight away there, right? I mean, it seems very childlike what they kind of put across there. There's no seriousness to this particular article as far as I can see. So yeah, that line there just got me thinking about this. Seems off. Alright, what about My Vaccine Pass? That's a vaccination certificate that can be generated from the MyCovid record site to prove your vaccination status to any restaurant, shop, bar, airline and gym that requires you to be fully vaccinated to enter once the traffic light system comes into it. That's right, so if any of you are not here in New Zealand, we have to prove by showing our papers or digital paper to some jackboot person at the front of the shop in uniform, probably with black boots on and stuff, that we need to show them we have the correct papers to be able to enter their establishment. Kind of what happened back in the 1930s and 1940s in Germany and Europe as well, right? My Vaccine Pass will launch in the end of November. Also, we've been assured. The names are really clunky and repetitive. Oh, trust us, we know. Again, that just seems off, right? How will the vaccine certificate work? Using a free smartphone app, businesses and other organisations will be able to verify the validity of the My Vaccine Pass you show them. The app will tell them your name and date of birth, much like our other ID documents do, and the fact that you've been vaccinated, but not when, with, what, or by whom. Random strangers have no right to access my medical records. That's true, but we're facing unique circumstances, so you need to give up your rights because of these unique circumstances. Though, and like it or lump it, soon businesses will be permitted to verify your vaccination status in order to grant you entry to venues or accesses to services. To be clear, they won't be able to access your medical records, but they'll be able to ask you to show your vaccine pass, and if you can't or won't, you'll likely be denied entry. Now, I'm firmly of the opinion that eventually the virus is going to become so endemic that there's going to be no difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated people, in which case we're not going to need these vaccine passports anyway. It's just driving a massive wedge and segregation of the New Zealand population, but that's what all these left-wing politicians actually want, right? They want to divide up and conquer, basically. Is the website safe? I heard it's insecure. An IT security expert recently made the news by claiming that the MyCovid record site was insecure. In short, the claims were exaggerated and lacked context. Even shorter, they were nonsense. The tests the expert relied on were basic online security screening sites, which gave some aspects of MyCovid record a low score based on decisions developers made not to use all the very latest technologies for aspects of the site's underlying communication protocols. Without getting into the weeds too much, getting into the detail too much makes more sense. Those tests don't take into account the risk the site is likely to face given its function and design, nor the trade-offs the government needed to make to ensure the system is as accessible as possible to New Zealanders, including those using older devices. None of the issues the tests identified were fundamental security risks. To put your mind at ease, consider that every online banking website in New Zealand scores equally poorly on those tests, but their online services are very secure. Plus, as part of the development process, the Ministry of Health hired outside expert consultants to conduct a detailed study on the security of the site and the technology that underpins it. While the study result isn't public, the process requires that any identified security risks are rectified. Well, of course, we'll never know because the study isn't public, right? So we have no idea what kind of result. I mean, if the government commissioned this result, they should have made it public because they're using our money to commission the report. We own the report as New Zealand citizens. We have a right to know what's inside that report, to know that it's safe. We don't need to know the details, but we should know whether the site is actually safe or not, or whether there are some issues that need to be taken care of. Okay, but is it safe? Yes, like anything online, there's always some security risk, but a very reasonable precaution has been taken to protect the system. What's a reasonable precaution? We have no idea. This article has no detail about anything. They don't go into the pros and cons about anything about this, right? It's just a full-on political broadcast for the government and their vaccine certificates. Do I really need this certificate? My cousin who makes websites said he could make a fake version. The Ministry of Health is one step ahead of your cousin and has adopted measures to prevent forgery. My Vaccine Pass will show a QR code that contains your name, date of birth and digital equivalent of one of those fancy holograms they use to put on credit cards. When the QR code is scanned, the Verify app will confirm that the pass is valid and the details it contains are correct. Any forgery will be immediately identified. So what if you had a phone and you gave it to someone else to use? Does it actually have your photo with the phone? Is that going to come up? No, they don't talk about that in this article, do they? They don't bring up anything about that. They should be asking those particular questions, but no, it's basically a full-on rah-rah, do this, it's really awesome type article. Admittedly, no vaccine certificate system, short of issuing us with all physical passports, is going to be totally foolproof, and a motivated fraudster will be able to make a fake just about anything. But there are safeguards in place, including the law. Anyone faking a vaccine certificate will face fines, according to COVID-19 response minister Chris Hipkins. I don't have a smartphone. Am I locked out of the scheme? You can access my COVID record site on a computer or a tablet, probably even on some smart fridges. Really? You can access your COVID record on a smart fridge? Wow. We better print it off from the fridge as well? That would be pretty awesome. While the final details aren't public yet, it should be simple from within my COVID record to generate a copy of Vaccine Pass that you can print out or save to your phone. Again, does it actually print your ID? Do you have to bring along ID with your vaccine passport? What if you don't have a physical ID with photograph on it? Do you have to get ID with photograph on it? They never talk about these particular questions, do they? But if device access to MyCovid record isn't practical for you or a loved one, the Ministry of Health will also make a good old-fashioned paper-based system version, probably complete with long holds on the phone and annoying forms to fill out. Why would you even say that last bit, right? Are you just trying to get everyone to have to buy a phone? What if someone doesn't want a phone? That just, again, that seemed completely off to me. Just the way that they're saying all of these things, how they're phrasing things, is just ridiculous. Is this just a way for the government to track me? No, it's just a way to demonstrate your vaccine status. In fact, the Verify app that will be used to check my vaccine pass doesn't need to be connected to the internet to validate the pass. It won't be sending back data about your movements or storing information about the passes it has validated. That is interesting. So a Verify app doesn't actually need to use the internet. I'm going to have to double check that. What do I need to do now? There are two main things you need to do in order. blah, 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 blah. I don't really need to go into that. But here's the kicker. Look at the very last line of this. Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air funding. What does that mean? It means that this article has been paid for by the government through New Zealand On Air, which is a government agency, and it's being paid by taxpayers' money. This is a political broadcast for the government. It doesn't ask any questions about the process. It doesn't give any disadvantages to it. It's all advantages. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to see here. It's obviously a paid for article for the government. And it says so down at the bottom, it's paid for journalism funding through New Zealand On Air. So this is why the government funding 110 new journalist positions in New Zealand is extremely dangerous. Whether you're a left-wing government or a right-wing government, journalists should not be funded directly through the government, because it means they're not going to write articles which will be truly independent. And they're not, most of them aren't anyway. Most of them are pretty lefty themselves, so they're all biased, but it shouldn't be funded by the government. Does this not seem really off to you, this article, about how jingoistic it is about the government's scheme of vaccine certificates? Please let me know in the comment section if you felt the same as me, or is it just me? I'd really love to know if you actually feel the same way. What do you think of this being funded through our taxpayers' money, through the New Zealand government? That's absolutely ridiculous. So let me know in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, you're welcome to give me a thumbs down. And if you like my content, please subscribe, as it helps the YouTube algorithm to get used to my content. And hopefully I will catch you in the next recording.